In this video I'll be discussing the big problem with 3D printing from a beginner's perspective, also giving away a free Dungeon Door print model, and giving you an update on my 3D printing journey. Lastly, giving you a quick review of the Ender 3 Max printer. So let's start this video with the discussion topic, the problem with 3D printing, and my general warning to those thinking of taking it on as a hobby. Now yes, I am an inexperienced 3D printer person, although now I have used 3 separate 3D printers and done a fair few hours of research, but I'm still very much a beginner. I'm representing all those beginners out there that are more interested in the results of the print rather than the printer itself. So those people that want a printer that works straight out of the box and they don't want to spend hours researching the settings and setting it all up. Therein lies the problem. This is a hobby in itself. It's a great hobby for many with a lovely community of enthusiasts, very helpful, very supportive, but the tech is still kind of in its infancy and you will still need a great deal of patience, perseverance and time to take it on. When I got my first 3D printer, I was really excited that I was going to see my creations come to life. My expectation when I first started was, here's my beautiful model in Blender, press print, and here's my result. However, what you may have gathered is that things aren't really that simple. You will need to learn about your printer's settings with lots of trial and error. You'll need to spend time experimenting. You'll need to get used to how to remodel your objects for optimum 3D printing and be prepared for lots of disappointment along the way. The biggest problem that 3D printing on a consumer level, so the cheaper 3D printers, the problem they have is that they haven't fully dealt with the overhang issue. So you have to have supports which you then have to break off, and those can leave tiny marks. If you want to print something out like a character, you'll probably need to cut it up into pieces and then stick it together afterwards, and you need a fair bit of knowledge to know how that's going to work and set your model up accordingly. If you've got a character's arm, let's say, it obviously needs supports here where it's printed out, so that's the bit you'll need to cut off. So this overhang problem is probably the biggest problem for 3D printing, but there are some solutions. You can get dual extruders, so they print with 2 extruders at the same time, and one can be your support filament and one can be your main filament, and that support filament can be a water soluble filament. So you print your model, put it in water, and all the supports just dissolve off, which sounds a great idea. Not tried it myself, needs a few more hours of research by the looks of things. Then we've got resin printers. Now we're getting a bit more expensive and a bit more messy for the average person, but apparently they deal with the overhang a lot better. You can look those up yourself. Again, a few more hours of research needed there. Now I'm probably going to get lots of comments, hopefully not ripping me to pieces about my opinions, but there's a great community out there and I would encourage you to post on this. It's meant to be a discussion with your thoughts and the way you got into 3D printing and whether you agree with me about how complicated it can sometimes be. I would encourage you to read the comments as well, and please post links to useful articles or videos. Look at the comments as well out there if you're a beginner. There's some great people with some great experience and they should really help. Also look out for some funny comments of people that haven't fully watched the video and then tell me off for what they think I've said. I always enjoy reading those. Look out for them. Give those ones a like as well, that'd be kind of fun. So let's look at my recent attempt at 3D printing a Dungeon Door model. I think this kind of highlights the process and what it's like to 3D print a reasonably complex model. You can get this model for free on my Fangs page. I'm not sponsored today, it's just a good site for posting the model. Also, if you want to learn how to make this wonderful model, then do follow along my detailed sculpting tutorial. The playlist is in the description. So this is my first attempt, and in a previous video about 3D printing someone told me about tree supports in Cura, so I gave it a go. There were a couple of problems with the print. I thought it might have been the temperature change in the room because I left the window open overnight for ventilation and it might have gotten a bit cold. However, I don't think that this was the case in the end. I think it must have been the settings I chose. I might have needed more supports. You can change at what angle you think you need supports, and of course the more supports you have, the more mess it can create. So it's a bit of a balancing act to try and get the least amount of supports as possible with the best print as possible. The model's horns unfortunately broke, but it would have been fairly easy to glue them back together, but I thought I'd give it another go. So the second attempt, I went a little bit bigger with the model, fixed my door handle as well, made it a bit thicker because that broke off when I broke off some of the supports in the first one. Unfortunately, the filament broke halfway through, and it broke past my filament detector, so I only ended up with half the model. The filament detector is there because if the filament breaks, it will detect that and pause the print. but because it broke past that filament detector, it meant it kept trying to print without any filament. So I only ended up with half the model. On the third attempt it was okay, but I got a big strange blob at the end of the print, so the printer head didn't return back home and it left a big blob on top of one of my horns. Also, the bars to my door were too thin and they snapped off when I broke off the supports. So onto the fourth attempt. I went for different supports this time, moving away from the tree supports. It looked a really good print, but unfortunately when I broke off the supports it broke off parts of my model. So thin, delicate bits of a 3D model can be a bit of a problem. And that's certainly something to look out for when you're making your 3D models for print. Try not to make small, intricate parts. On the fifth attempt, I'm back to the tree supports, but I increased the amount of supports so they would help the overhang, hoping that that would sort out that funny sort of line issue I was having. But unfortunately the lines are still there. I think this was probably my best attempt and pretty close, but I am a bit disappointed about those funny lines I'm getting. And it only seems to be when I put the tree supports in. I was wondering whether this was a problem with the Ender 3 Max. I don't think so. I think it's more likely to be my settings. I'll give you a quick rundown of the Ender 3 Max. It costs about £200. It's quite big. It's got a 300 by 300 by 400mm printing area. That's probably its most influential feature. It's got dual fans for the extruder, so you should get a more consistent and quality print, which is why I'm surprised at the quality issues I had. It's quite low noise as well, which was really nice. My Geeetech printers I've worked with in the past are really quite noisy in comparison, but they are a bit cheaper, I suppose. It's also got a heated bed, which I think makes a massive difference because you can easily remove the prints from the base once they're finished. In the past I've been scraping prints off and working really hard to try and not damage the base and all this sort of thing, so make sure you get a printer that has a heated bed, in my opinion. As I've said, the odd problems I think are down to kind of user error and the settings I had. Not so sure about the filament breaking, that could be down to the actual filament itself. The weird lines I'm not so sure about, and that funny blob I had where the printer didn't return back to its home, I think again probably something I did in the settings. So I'm still going on my 3D journey, but you can see the issues you might come up against as a beginner. What I probably should be doing is breaking up the model, taking the door off maybe, and trying to print the whole entire model on its side and separating it out and sticking it back together afterwards. So here's a call out to anybody that wants to join in and print the dungeon door model themselves. See if you can get a better result. It's a good chance to maybe show off some of your experience or your kit that you've got that makes a big difference. Probably easiest to show your results on the Discord server, so I'll create a channel solely for 3D printing and you can show me there. Maybe there's someone out there with an Ender 3 Max that is getting better results than me and you can explain where I'm going wrong. So to summarise, yes, there is a problem with 3D printing in that it takes a lot of time, effort and expense to get good results. So for the people out there like me, the 3D artists that kind of just want results, you have to be prepared for this and know that it's not really that easy. You will need to learn about your 3D printer settings with lots of trial and error. You'll need to learn about your slicer program. I'm using Cura 4 in case you're interested. You will need to spend some time experimenting. You will need to get used to how to remodel your objects for optimum 3D printing. And be prepared for lots of disappointment along the way. Do comment below with your thoughts and ideas on the subject. Join the Discord discussion, links in the description. Thanks for watching, thanks for all your support, and I'll see you next time.